when we were writing the proposal for this paper, some of my classmates and some deacon also challenged that how can we even bring the whole issue of Trinitarian theology to Kenyans? It doesn't make sense. But I think it makes sense. Bakika, anyway, before I talk my funny Swahili, you know that Swahili was born in Tanzania, but when it came to Kenya, something else happened.
It got COVID.
Yeah, as it moves to other parts. But
died in Congo.
It died in Congo, exactly.
Yeah.
But
greetings to you all who are following us through this channel, and thank you for joining into this conversation. Today we are privileged to have a guest away from Kenya, so we are glad to have you. And today actually marks the beginning of a series of episodes on the research papers of students in theology, formation in a view of priesthood, and also some not really in the line of priesthood. So today we are privileged to have you, Brother Odero from Kenya, and thank you for your time, for allowing us to have this conversation with you. So I'm going to ask you some questions based on what you wrote. But before I jump into those questions, I would like to know if I have ever forgotten anything about you. Who is Odero, actually?
Right. Thank you very much. I'm Emmanuel Odero, the way you have said. I'm a Palatine. Palatines are a congregation, a missionary congregation in the Catholic Church, concerned with the Universal Apostolate. And now I'm a postgraduate student in St. Joseph's Theological Institute, I think, and I'm from Kenya. Now studying in South Africa. That's good.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And I'm jumping already into the first question. I'd like to know, tell us about your summary. What did you find in your research papers?
Right. My research paper was simply a conversation of theology with normal human life. And I situated it in Kenya because it is the place where I was born and I grew up. So I began that in this work, my first research paper, I dedicated it to where I grew up. And it was the whole idea of trying to bring the Trinitarian God into the community of the Kenyan people. My whole idea, the central argument of my paper is that anthropologically, the Christian anthropology claims that humanity are created in the image and likeness of God. And if we are created in the image and likeness of God, I argue the case that we are therefore created in the image and likeness of the Trinity. And because Trinity is a communitarian personality, so God the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit, three persons in one God, living in eternal communion, I saw it that we can apply some theological principles to solve a problem of tribalism in Kenya, especially by applying the model, model of Leonardo Boff. When he talks, the social Trinitarian model, how it can kind of help the Kenyans to find themselves in living in a unified way. And I also employed the koinonia, the community of God, talked about by many Trinitarian theologians, and above all, also the transcendence that Karl Rahner talks about, and therefore I propose a tribe transcendence to help the people of Kenya find a solution for the problem of tribalism.
Thank you very much. And actually, the title of your work is Humanity as the Image of Trinitarian God. Am I correct?
Very correct.
The Doctrine of Imago Dei as Theological Response to Tribalism in Kenya. So now, acknowledging that, already talking about the Holy Trinity, for some people it's kind of mysterious, something we cannot think about, so complicated up there. On what ground do you think that you can still talk about the Holy Trinity, and again to Kenyan people, and they link it suggest it as a model to solve the issue of tribalism?
Okay, absolutely, on 3 grounds. To begin with, there is always a misnomer that a mystery is something we can never understand, or we should not even try to think about, which I think we should correct in the first place, that a mystery is that which, of course, we can understand, but we don't get the totality of it. So we can enter the drama of understanding it, but not to understand it fully. So at my paper, the arguments of Trinity in conversation with the social issue of tribalism in Kenya is grounded on 3 bases. Number 1 is the traditional metaphysical problem of the one and many. When you read Cicero, you read Socrates, you read Aristotle, and quite a number of philosophers, you'll find that in philosophy there is a category of the one and many, that things in the visible world are categorized either as one or as many. So if something is one, it cannot be many. And for me, this problem of the one and many is best solved in the Trinitarian God. And why do we bring Trinity in the metaphysics of one and many? You realize that God, if we believe that God is the creator of the world, so God is not a thing in the world. So if he's not a thing in the world, he cannot be characterized definitely by things in the world. So God will be a perfection of the one, and God will be a perfection of the many. And this is the central argument also that Joseph Ratzinger in his book Introduction to Christianity alludes to, that God is a perfection of the one and the many. Now, at the core of the problem of tribalism is also a problem of the one and many. One, identity, my own tribe, my own people. Then the many, the other tribes, their people, these other ones. So how do we relate between my own tribe, my own people, with the other? It's also a problem with the one and the many. So when I saw this, I saw that then we can solve this by bringing the Trinitarian communion into the communion among the tribes. But secondly, I would argue the case that it's based on the Kenyan people by themselves. According to the 2019 census in Kenya, you realize that Kenya is predominantly a Christian community. And if it is predominantly a Christian community, regardless of the kind of maybe denominations people can ascribe to, so they should identify by the doctrine of the Trinity, therefore, because it's a fundamental Christian doctrine. And if they should identify with it, it means that it can help them solve the problem of tribalism. Then my third...
sorry, before you go to the third one,
exactly.
Do you think, like, are you implying like a Muslim can still read your paper that you titled, the paper based actually on a Trinitarian model, a Muslim who does not believe in a God who is tripersonal? Can you still think that he can, because he does not consider to begin with God as something in communion? How does that model inspire him also to see that this Trinitarian God, I can draw a model from this, that which he does not believe in, by the way, to be a model to incarnate and therefore be kind of inspiration to his or her life? Okay,
to the Muslims, I think it can still work out.
I mean, it includes also all other religions and all the people. You can even think of the atheist, actually.
Absolutely. For me, the centrality of the argument of the paper is intersubjectivity of humanity. And intersubjectivity of humanity transcends just mere religions that we ourselves ascribe to. And it is possible because at the center of the core of the human being, you find that a human being is born and relates in the nature. So reason itself shows us that there is interrelationality that we find between beings, between plants and animals, the oxygen, carbon dioxide. We find that there is relationality. And above all, even a human being, even if he's a Christian or a Muslim, does not jump from heaven. They are born out of a person. So there is that relationality. So at the core of the paper is relationality, not so much of a Trinity. Trinity as an inspiration in itself, but relationality can apply to somebody even beyond a religion. But the problem is not to identify nature with God, because then we can be pantheistic in a way. But for the Muslims, I think, even though we know that for the Muslims, the deity is one and can never be conceived as Trinitarian in any way, but I think in their own writings, in their own scriptures, the holy book of the holy book of Quran, when you read 3:103, do they call it ayah or something of whatever they say? They say that hold on to the rope of Allah and never be divided, because recognizing how Allah has saved you. So at the center of their own religion, there is Allah whom they are holding on as if it's one rope coming up. So if everyone is holding on to it, so at the center of their own religion, we can also find the dictates of unity in diversity. So it might not apply to them at the Trinitarian level, but at the very central level of human intersubjectivity, it will speak to their soul.
Thank you very much. I don't know if you have already mentioned your third point.
Yeah, the third point is, but why not? Why can't we do theology with tribalism? Why not? It reminds me that when we were writing the proposal for this paper, some of my classmates and some deacon also challenged that. How can we even bring the whole issue of Trinitarian theology to Kenyans? It doesn't make sense. But I think it makes sense. And we as the new theologians or the young theologians in Africa should not fear engaging in theology, using theological principles and even our own doctrines to bring solutions to our own African problems, because it is possible. I'm a lover of African theology, of course, but African theology should not be left that African theologians should only think about their culture and postulate it as if it's the only theology you can ever think of. So Trinity can inspire the situation of tribalism, as the paper argues.
Thank you very much. And again, in your paper, you accuse, for lack of better word, you accuse the Imperial West to be kind of the basis of the tribalism in Kenya. So can we really still say today that the Imperial West is really at the heart of what you have called tribalism? In your researching, don't you think sometimes it is about us? Because most of the time we have this tendency to blame others, the tendency of human beings, to throw mistakes on others. Don't you think that we, in this case, Kenyans, like you are kind of the co-authors of your own misfortune in this regard of tribalism?
I agree with you. Of course, in my argument about the Imperial West being a cause for tribalism in Kenya was only a matter of my methodology in trying to argue my case. So the historical part would go that direction also. Of course, even historically, it's not entirely the problem, but in the present modern world, we can't speak of them as the cause of tribalism in Kenya. We are the causes in one way or the other. We have caused our own misfortunes, and we can't blame them. That is just a fact. It's a given. It's our own politicians who, I think, use it as a vehicle for their own political gains, and they perpetuate it over and over again until it enters the psychic of people as if we can't overcome it. But it is something that we ourselves, just as you have said that we are like the creators of our own misfortunes, therefore we must become the solutions of those misfortunes we are creating for ourselves. And therefore, I call upon the Kenyan people to look at it in another way. Of course, tribalism has been looked at in Kenya in many models, but I think theologically we need to come up with more ideas on how to sort out this problem. It might not entirely go, but humanity must move from fragmentation to unity. It is possible.
Thank you very much. given the fact that you or yourself are preparing for this ministry in priesthood, so I would like to know, as a native of Kenya, where really what you call fragmentation, or maybe in other kind of ways, brokenness into kind of caused by tribalism in Kenya. I'd like to know the clergy or the ministers, pastors in different churches, in Catholic included. Do you think they are kind of fit to address Kenyan tribalism? Don't you see them also somehow kind of implicated? And if they are implicated, how relevant are they to address the issues of tribalism as a minister of the church? Because they are supposed to be, I guess, in a so close way to the reality of this imago they were talking about. They were supposed to be the model of the society. Are they implicated? And if so, how can they deliver a believable message to the rest of Kenyan?
Arguably, especially basing my arguments on a research, because there are many research that have been done in this area about tribalism in religious life and the church as an institution itself in Kenya. And we find that it's a fact that they are involved. And let me say we are involved, because I'm part of the church in this sense then. But again, for me, how do I take it is in two ways. Number one, that it's a scandal, because it scandalizes the faith we claim to proclaim, in a way that we suppose the church in one way should be like the light to the people, that we can show the people. But sometimes it's a challenge. It's a challenge. And I think I call upon the relooking into our own formation system, in our own whatever, so that we might address the reality of tribalism head on, not by just trying to sugarcoat it, in a way that we are able to offer solutions. You see, John Paul II wrote an apostolic exhortation called Pastoris Doba Vobis. And in Pastoris Doba Vobis, you find that John Paul II claims that it is time for the church in the postmodern world to kind of face their own solutions, especially in the formation of the priesthood and the clergy who are going to be able to form the laity, that they can become truly the light that they claim to be. And this can only be done by looking at the things that are happening within them. So in the situation of Kenya, if formation is done devoid of the fact of tribalism, as if it doesn't exist in the church, it's like we are lying to ourselves. So there should be that. Again, to me, I would say, but anyway, where are the priests from? The so-called church leaders or whoever that are implicated, they come from the very society which already is cancerous in tribalism in nature. So you find that these people have grew up in a family that are torn in this kind of feelings of being rejected by other tribes, and it grows subconsciously in them, and they will manifest it in their own mission. At the end of it all, go to the very beginning of the book of Genesis. Human fragmentation is a reality that people might live with. So it will be there in the religious institutions, but the church must work out a formula in which it becomes more of a light in the whole issue. Like one of my lecturer argues, I think in Kenya, maybe where we are producing the heat rather than the light in terms of this. So we need some light rather than heat in terms of how can we talk about this issue and find a good solution to move forward.
Thank you very much. We are almost heading to the last questions. I'm not blind to the fact that Kenyan people are largely Swahili-speaking people. And you're addressing a very, very important topic, which you got even the very essence of Kenyan people living in a community, which is kind of even extended belief in most of African countries. We claim, or we do try to live this communion. And how can someone who have never ever attended a school who may fall on this video one day understand what you are talking about, because I do believe that you also address Kenyan people, not only address them, but they are really the main concern on the topic you are tackling. So tell us in Kiswahili, tuelezee unazungumzia nini fumbo ya Utatu Mtakatifu, ule bibi, ule mtu ambaye hajaenda shuleni, hana hata even sometimes hana ile same conception ya Utatu Mtakatifu, seme Waislamu au watu wengine ambao hawana hata kanisa lolote, hawaendi kwenye kanisa lolote tu, wanaishi tu hivyo, wanajaribu tu kuishi kile kitu tunachoita utu, hawajiassociate na kitu chochote. Wanaweza kuelewa nini unazungumzia nini?
Okay, kwa hakika, anyway, before I talk my funny Swahili, you know that Swahili was born in Tanzania, but when it came to Kenya, something else happened.
It got COVID.
Yeah, as it moves to other parts. But
died in Congo.
It died in Congo, exactly.
Yeah.
But vile umesema, kwa Wakenya wenzangu, hii karatasi niliandika kwa walio isoma ama watakao isoma, vile umesema katika utu wetu wa kibinadamu, sisi tumeumbwa kwa mfano wake Mwenyezi Mungu. Sisi kama Wakristo tuna imani ya kwamba katika utu wetu tumeumbwa kwa mfano ama kwa picha lake Mwenyezi Mungu. Na sasa kama Wakristo, hiyo mfano ama picha ya Mwenyezi Mungu ni mfano ama picha ya Utatu Mtakatifu. Utatu Mtakatifu ni dhihirisho ya kwamba Mungu ni Mungu mmoja, lakini katika Mungu mmoja kuna Mungu Baba, Mungu Mwana na Mungu Roho Mtakatifu, ila sio miungu mitatu, lakini Mungu mmoja. Sasa katika utu wetu kama binadamu, kama tumeumbwa na Mungu tunavyoamini na tumeumbwa kwa sura yake, inaonyesha kwamba katika utu wetu tuko na hiyo uwezekano wa kuishi Utatu Mtakatifu, kuishi kwa umoja, ingawaje tuko katika kabila zinginezo. Kwa sababu Kenya ukabila umekithiri, na hiyo ni kitu tumejua, tumezaliwa huko, tumeona. Lakini hiyo ukabila uliokithiri, sisi kama Wakristo tunaweza tumia Utatu Mtakatifu, na utu wetu iko ndani yetu. Sasa hatufai kuiangalia huku nje, lakini ndani yetu kama binadamu tumezaliwa ili tuishi kwa umoja, upendo na maridhiano na kila mtu. Hivi unaona kwa viumbe, hata kama hujaongea kuhusu Mungu. Sasa hiyo ndio karatasi niliyoandika inasema hivyo. Sasa sisi tunaweza kuishi katika hiyo Utatu Mtakatifu kama Wakristo. Sasa inatusaidia ili address the whole issue about tribalism.
And again, this will be my last question, trust me. So you write that this beautiful, that the diversity, I don't know how you put it, is so nice. A diversity reveals that splendor of God. No?
Yeah.
It's beautiful. So tell me, in the diversity, and again, as you say, it looks like diversity is willed by God. So as we are diverse, we also kind of have, it implies that we have also different or diverse thought systems. Can we say assert or affirm that beliefs, despite the fact that they may diverse, or maybe, let's say, even talk about different, can you see that difference in belief, in diversity, in difference, believing in different or talking in different from what we have talked actually? Can we say that it also is willed by God and is accurate and the truth? Can we still say that there is truth in difference?
Absolutely. Though they will always argue, you know, one of our lecturers would always say, is it the capital T or the small T? But at the end of it all, for me, I think that it is possible. You see, in the De Trinitate, a book I used a lot that Augustine wrote about the doctrine of the Trinity, Augustine says that God is one being, yeah? The unity of God. That this unity, the Father is not the Son, because the Father begets the Son, and the Son is begotten by the Father, so the Son is not the Father. But the Holy Spirit springs forth from both the Father and the Son, so it's neither the Father nor the Son. So at the very being of God, there is that difference, if you might call it. Though I wouldn't love to call it exactly.
The distinction.
Yeah, but at the very center of it, it shows the splendor of God. And this should inspire humanity. And I believe, for me, and that's what even I argue with the Papa, that I believe that it is willed by God that there should be differences, because it brings the splendor of creation. It makes life what it is. But how should we overcome our own differences? It's about the transcendence, and what Kalrana talks about. You move ad intra, ad extra, and ad theos. Ad intra, move into yourself. Then you move, understand yourself. You move out to the other people to embrace them, and then you move to God. So those three movements will help us really to go out of ourselves. But above all, there is a German theologian I like a lot called Balthasar. Balthasar argues that if you are not able to transcend yourself, it means you are living in the ego drama. And you live in the ego drama where you define yourself, everything is according to you and how you think. But when you are able to move out of it, you now come to the theodrama, whether you are able to meet the other and see yourself in the other, and the other will be able to see himself or herself in you. And that is what makes life what it is. So I encourage us that our differences, whether in beliefs or in whatever we want to call them, are willed by God, and they make life really a beautiful thing.
Thank you very much. And actually, 2 days ago, I found a very astonishing statement. Also, I knew it from philosophy, but the way that one explained it, it goes like this: the absence of evidence is not the evidence of absence. Absolutely. Which means that there are things that are known, unknown, then the unknown. The things we don't know that we don't know is complicated, but it's sometimes true. So thank you very much for your time, for watching, and we are grateful, Brother Odell, for your sharing, and we wish you all the best in your journey to priesthood. But also, as I said in the beginning, this really marks the beginning of episode. Very soon we are going to have another talk on people who have searched in different fields, in theology, in pastoral theology, more theology, dogmatic theology, and elsewhere. So stay connected. See you soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
All right.
And thanks for giving me the opportunity.
All right.
Thank you.